This is the first book in a 12-book series, and I'm gonna try and read all 12 before this month is up. I've never read that many books in a month before, and I'm honestly not even sure if it's possible for me, but I'm up for the challenge, so I'm gonna start reading today. The book is called Left Behind, and in order to help me stay on pace for finishing this series in a month, I compiled a list of a bunch of different ways to help me prioritize reading more and to read faster, some of which are pretty tough, and we'll see if any of them actually work. This book is starting off so intense. I love books that have such a fast pace, like intriguing beginning to them because it just makes me want to read it so much more. I'll explain all that happens in a minute, but it's starting off kind of crazy. So this book and the entire series is basically an apocalyptic story where one day out of nowhere, like 50% of the population just disappears, which is on the back synopsis, so I kind of understood that that's what this will be about. But what made the beginning of this one so interesting to me is that it starts off in the perspective of a pilot on an airplane, and suddenly like half of his passengers just disappear and he has no idea why, and it's just this huge mystery because nobody knows what's going on. So knowing myself, the only way I'm actually going to finish this series in a month is if I'm super intentional about setting time aside for reading, which can be hard to do because I am busy for a lot of the day. So anyway, I was thinking I could do it like first thing in the morning, but usually I'm pretty busy in the morning. I usually like to read like late afternoon time, but sometimes I have time for that and sometimes I don't. Then I thought of this 1 hour towards the end of the day that pretty much every single day I spend on my phone or on my computer watching TV. It's around right before I go to bed, so I'm usually tired and I don't feel like doing anything other than just scrolling on my phone. It's around like 9-10 p.m. but it's the perfect time to read instead of doing that. So throughout this month, no matter how tired I am or busy or distracted, I'm going to read during this hour. And of course read whenever I do have time throughout the rest of the day. But if all else fails, I at least have this hour no matter what. So yes, a small part of me does wish I could just go on my phone right now, but I'm so happy I made this commitment because once I'm finished reading and I will have spent this entire hour being like somewhat productive instead of just like watching TV, I know I'm gonna feel so much better about myself. And I'm also in such a good part of the book, so I am just like really excited to read it in general. I'm a little over halfway through this book now. It's going so well so far. I will say there's two different perspectives going on. Basically every chapter switches between one person's story and then the other person's, and their paths cross a little bit as well, but there's definitely one perspective that I much prefer reading than the other. One of them is very like political, and I'm just not quite as interested in that side of the story as I am with the main guy who's the pilot. The pilot guy's daughter is now a part of the story, and I actually really like her character a lot. Anyway, it took a little while, but they're finally started to realize that everything that's going on might have something to do with God and the Bible. So something I haven't mentioned about this book yet is that the main theme around all of it is about the end times and like the rapture in the Bible, which is what eventually becomes the main character's theory on why everyone disappeared. And then there's a lot of parts about this story that hints to a lot of the things you see in Revelation. A lot of it is a little bit scary, which is why I keep saying this story is super intense. If I'm gonna be honest, when I first heard about this book, before I started reading it, I was a little bit hesitant to start it because of this thing. Just because I feel like when you get a fictional story about the end times, I feel like you just never know what you're gonna get because we don't know all the details about this time from the Bible. Obviously, a lot of stuff has to be reimagined or interpreted by the authors in the fiction book, and I feel like a story like that can just get a little bit dicey. So far, it's been okay, and when I read it with the perspective of it's just a fiction book, helps me to enjoy it a little bit more. And specifically, the main guy who's the pilot is starting to really question things and kind of getting close to believing it, which is actually pretty surprising because he seems like not the type of person who would easily believe in something like that. But their situation is kind of giving them almost like no choice but to believe because nothing else makes sense. Again, half the population just disappeared, and he's slowly starting to believe more and more, and I like seeing that part of the story and him growing in this belief. Alright, so I tried so hard to finish this book yesterday, and I was just busy and distracted and I never got around to it. So today I am determined more than ever to finish this book, because if I'm going to stay on like a good schedule, a good pace to finish this entire series in a month, I really need to finish it like ASAP. I am on page 394 and I think it goes up to 472, and right now I have a decent amount of time to read, so I literally think I'm just gonna force myself to sit on this couch and read until I finish this book and not let myself stop. I'm excited to finish the book and I want to know how it ends, so I am sitting on this couch until I finish reading this book. So at this point you might be wondering, why are you in such a rush to read through all these books so quickly? Obviously trying to read them all in 1 month makes for like a more fun video, but another big reason why I want to do them all in 1 month is because I have so many other books that I want to read and videos that I need to make that I just can't spend that much time working on one series in one video. The ending is actually a little bit more mellow than I thought it was gonna be, but that's probably because there's still so much story to go in the next 11 books, but only 20 pages left. And also another huge reason, which might even be the biggest reason, is that I've noticed that when I let myself work really slowly through a book, I lose interest pretty quickly, especially with a big series like this. And I've noticed that when I read through books quicker, I'm so much more interested in them, and I'm seeing the result of that for these books. Typically, just the more time I spend on a book, the more I tend to like it. Even though it is a challenge, I really am enjoying it. Left Behind, the first book, is officially finished. It did take me 4 days to finish this book, which is pretty fast for me, but it's not quick enough to finish all 12 books in 1 month. But it's okay because I do have a plan when I start the next book to help me read so much more quickly and hopefully get more done in a quicker period of time. Not too much was concluded in this one, but that's obviously because there's so many more books to go. I think my favorite part about this book is the suspense and the mystery. Obviously, as the reader, you know that the theory that everything that's happening is because of the end times or whatever, but it is interesting to see other people's theories and whether people believe it or not. And I'm so curious to see how many more people are going to start to believe this as time goes on and what is going to prove it to them. So I'm just really excited to start the next book. But first, I need to go to the bookstore. At this point, I was feeling really good about this challenge. I was enjoying the story, and I really thought I was definitely going to be able to complete all the books by the end of the month. But there was one thing that could stop me from reaching the 12th book that I never anticipated would be an issue. And yes, it becomes a problem really soon. Just wait. I was looking at all the books in the store and they have some of the most extreme titles, and this second one that I just caught is called Tribulation Force. This second one I'm about to start today, but like I said, I need to start reading a little bit quicker in order to finish these books in a month. So I noticed that these audiobooks are on Spotify. So what I'm going to be doing with this book and the rest of the books to come is reading the actual physical book while also listening to the audiobook whenever I am doing something where I can't be reading. So that way I can spend like so much more of my day getting through the books, and then when I can, I'll still be reading the physical books as well, and hopefully that'll speed up the process. So I started this book a little bit yesterday, and then I've been listening to the audiobook a lot this morning. This one is starting off pretty strong. It's basically starting right where the last book left off, so it does kind of feel like one just like long story. Obviously this is a Christian fiction book, but I really thought all the stuff you'd see about like God in the Bible would just have to do with the ending of the world and everything you read about in like Revelation and stuff. Basically just like the scary stuff. But I honestly think the coolest parts you see about God in these books has nothing really to do with the end of the world, even though that's the majority of what the story's about. The coolest parts to me are the fact that like the main character is the type of person that you'd think would never believe in something like Christianity, and yet throughout the last book he was slowly starting to believe it more and more, and now he's so firm in this belief even though a lot of people around him don't believe it and kind of think he's crazy. It is just really cool to see his like pretty big transition from the beginning of the first book to this one, and now that he believes so strongly, it's like his biggest mission to help other people believe too, because he understands the urgency of everything. And then you're slowly starting to see some of the people around him going through the same transition. It's just really cool to see. I am currently over halfway through reading this book, which means I can finish this book today, which would be so nice. Like I said before, listening to the audiobook was such a good decision I made because it is helping me to fly through this so quickly. So far, I'm really liking this one a lot. There's a lot more in this book about the main guy's daughter, who's my favorite character so far. She's like a college-aged girl who's just like struggling to figure out what's going on. Believing something like Christianity being the cause of everything is just hard for her to comprehend. And so she has slowly been easing into this idea more and more. And there's just a lot more about her personal life and stuff that she's going through. and maybe that's also a big help in why I'm going through this one pretty quickly. I've also just had a lot of free time these past couple of days. I only have like 15 pages left in this second book, so I'm about to start reading. I also went ahead and bought the third book, so as soon as I'm finished with this one, I'm gonna go grab that one and start the third one. I always really like that the epilogues to all of these are just verses. As far as my opinions and thoughts about this book, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow, but right now I just want to read, so I'm going to go ahead and start on the third book. The second book is finished now. This book was really good. I will say towards the ending of this book, it got much more into like the bigger picture politics, what like each country is doing in reaction to like this ending of the world and stuff. I just definitely prefer the perspective of the main guy and his daughter just because that's more personal and I'm more invested in the two of them as characters and stuff. Now I have the third book in the series. I've actually already started this one. I'm about 30-ish pages in. Nikolai, I think they say Nikolai in the audiobook, so I'm guessing that's what that is. This is a character in the book, kind of like the villain of the book, so I'm assuming this story is all about him, which will be interesting because he's definitely a strange character. So for this book, I think it's a good idea for me to continue to read the physical book and also listen to the audiobook. And I have one last little strategy that I'm going to add on to this one in hopes that it helps me read even faster, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Even though there were parts about this last book that I didn't really like, I just didn't let myself think about it. Instead, I bulldozed straight to the next book, hoping it would get better. After all, I still had 9 whole books left to read. Okay, so the reading strategy that I'm about to start is one that I had the idea to do back when I first started the beginning of this series, but I've kind of been avoiding because it's one that I don't really want to do, but I know I should because it'll be good, which is to essentially lock away my phone as soon as I start reading for the day and don't use it until I've done a decent amount of reading. So for these next couple of days or however long it takes me to finish this book, when I start reading in the morning, I'm going to put this away like in a drawer or somewhere and I'm not going to carry it around with me. And I am just really curious in general to see how much more time I'll have to read without my phone. So I'm about to do that now and start like full on reading and listening to the audiobook for today, and we'll see how much I get done. Going phoneless has been really great so far. Every time I get to the end of a chapter or a stopping point, I don't really let myself stop because there's no need to. I just keep going straight through, which has been super nice. So I made some great progress yesterday. I ended up going to the gym and pulling my phone out and listening to the audiobook while I was there. I'm like nearing the halfway point now. I still have a little ways to go, but it's crazy. I've never read this much and this many books in this few amount of days before in my entire life. Obviously, before I started this whole challenge, I knew I was gonna have to dedicate basically every day towards reading. Going into each day with that mindset has helped a lot, but it's crazy. Yesterday, locking away my phone while I was reading was a really good idea, so I'm gonna do that again today and just start reading. I don't think I've talked too much about the story in this one yet. I think that's just because this book to me isn't quite as interesting. Again, it's majoritively about this character and I don't care for this character that much. This book is also very like bigger picture political, like wars are happening. I don't know, I just feel like I'm a little bit less interested in that side of the story, but I'm hoping that that's just a this book thing and that doesn't stay that way for the rest of the books. Another thing I avoided mentioning about this book is that I really didn't like how weird the theology was getting. It just felt like this book was taking these pieces of the Bible and like changing it and morphing it a bit in a way that fit into their scary story, and honestly I really wasn't liking it. But at the time I was really trying to convince myself that it was just gonna be this third book and that things would get better from there. This third book is finished. I ended up not really liking this one, so I'm kind of happy it's done. I think I'm around 9 days into this whole challenge and I've only done 3 books so far, which isn't quite on pace for doing everything I'm trying to do, but I'm gonna keep doing my best as time goes on. Now it's time for me to start the 4th book, which is called The Soul Harvest. As I started to read this 4th book, I was really devastated to find that nothing was really getting better. The story was going downhill and the theology was again just getting weird. Because of that, it was taking me so long to finish it, like way longer than any of the other books thus far. And taking that much time made me realize that finishing this series in a month wasn't really possible anymore. This whole time I was so focused on the time restraint, and I thought that was the only thing that could stop me. For some reason, I never really considered that the actual story was something that could ultimately make me fail this challenge. I think that's because for so long I had heard these books were so good and I automatically assumed that I would love them too, but like I said, I didn't feel the same way and only ended up getting through book 4. I just finished reading The Soul Harvest, and I think it's safe to say that this series is ending here for me. Regardless of how I felt about these books towards the end, I think it's safe to say that I at least enjoyed the first 2, and it just feels really nice knowing that I've read so many books in less than a month. So I am still happy I did this, even though it didn't end the way that I expected it to. If you've read this series, please let me know your opinions on it. Am I crazy for not liking it? Does it get better after the 4th book? Just let me know your thoughts, but these for now are going to be going on my shelf as just a set of 4, and I think I'm satisfied with that.